is what we're covering today. It's the very end of the book, the second book of Acts, and we're talking about devotion. That's going to be kind of what we're focused on this morning. What's up, John? There you go. John's in the seat behind the post over here, so I'll be bobbing and weaving, checking in on him every now and then. So the early church in Acts chapter 2, verse 42, it says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Okay? Now, there's a whole lot of things there that they actually devoted themselves to. There's a handful of things. And I think it's very easy for us to just read over it and see the sentence and just move on. Yes, they devoted themselves to those things, and we just go on. And we miss the term of devotion, being devoted. Okay? God made us in His likeness. He made us in His image. And He made us with this part of us inside that nothing can fill but Him. Nothing. Now we all know, we try to fill it with all kinds of other stuff, whether we do that intentionally or unintentionally. And we'll get into more of that as we go. But we are made to be devoted to Him. We're made that way. That's in our DNA. For when we're not being devoted to Him, we are actually acting in opposition of what He created us to do and to be. We're not functioning at our highest level. We're not being who we were meant to be. Devotion. So, I go to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and this is the quote on devotion. So what does devotion mean? It means the act of dedicating something. Okay? So there's a dedication, there's an intentionality. It's not just random, I hate to step on your toes on the random acts of kindness things, but that's one of my pet peeves. Now, be kind, but do it purposefully. Don't do it randomly. Okay? Now, I'm not on a crusade to change the phrase or whatever. And if you buy a guy a Coke in Dairy Queen line, awesome. But I'm saying let's do it out of His prompting. Let it be purposeful. To me, again, I'm not trying to go deep on this, but I am trying to think this through from the standpoint of it's easy to do random acts of kindness, and then I can pat myself on the back. Didn't think I did something. I hadn't done anything. When I get my paycheck, was really that $2.79 Sonic drink that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things for the guy behind me? But boy, I can feel good about myself because I did a random act of kindness. As opposed to, doesn't matter what the cost is, if God prompted you to do it, then that was worth doing, whether it was $2.79 or $479 or $1,000 or whatever it was, then it was just right. It was purposeful. God's moving in us. It takes it to a whole nother level. So it's an act of dedicating something. We're being intentional. It's not just happenstance. Now see, again, that goes in contrast to the idea of the Big Bang and that there is no God and the origin of species and all that everything was random. Okay? So if everything is random, well, then acts of random kindness, that'd be great. You're being the best you can be in the midst of a life that has no meaning. But who cares? Because it's all random. It's all by chance. It doesn't really matter anyway. Why bother? Why would I care about you or anybody else if there's no purpose? That's illogical. Okay? But rather, when we are dedicating something, we're saying, okay, this is important. And I'm going to be intentional in this. I'm going to be devoted in this area. We're taking a bigger step into who we are and to what this is that we're doing. So it's a dedication of something, a cause, an enterprise, or an activity. The act of devoting, the devotion of a great deal of time and energy. There you go. Here's another pretty important part of devotion, that you're putting time and energy into whatever it is. Now you can say, well, I devote myself to this cause, but if you ever spend any time doing it or thinking about it or any activity towards it, you're not really devoted, are you? You know? You're just not. That kind of goes in contrast to the term of devotion. So, as we look at this thought and this concept of devotion, and we begin to allow God to pull back the curtain and help us be able to see a little deeper into this, one of the things that's going to be important as we grow and learn in where we are and what we're devoted to is think about this. What do you put your time in? Where do you put your activity? Where do you put your thoughts? What is it that you go to every moment that you get a chance to not have to do your work or whatever activity that you're scheduled to do? Where is it that you're finding yourself? That's what we're devoted to. God has convicted me on that. It doesn't even have to be something necessarily sinful. It can be a good thing. It's letting us know, though, where is my heart? Where is my heart? What is it that my heart is devoted to? We're going to continue on that. So I just picked some stuff, okay? If something you're devoted to is on here, sorry, but not really. If something that you're devoted to is not on here, don't think you're getting off because God knows anyway. So either way, God knows our heart. It is what it is, okay? Am I devoted to sports, to golf, to Facebook, to work, to what? I put it on there. I put pickleball on there. Yeah. I knew Sherry wasn't going to let me get by with that. I put it on there. I've kind of gotten addicted to it here, even though I don't get to play it that much, but it really is fun. Whatever, leisure, like I said, it can be work, it can be games, it can be TV, it can be, whatever. I don't know. God knows. Sometimes there's been places in my life I'd be like, oh, yeah, well, I'm devoted to God. And God was like, are you? Are you? Now, that definition said a great deal of time and energy. I don't know how much. I read my verse this morning. Read 17 pages of the Sporting News later, had it memorized, could tell you everybody's batting average in the National and American League, could tell you every single starter and backup in the NFL, height and weights of last year's first-round draft picks, in football. But I read my verse this morning. I'm devoted. Ouch. I'm telling you mine. I'm telling you my journey. Where he goes, let's rethink this devotion thing. What are you devoted to? I have a very long work day in this season of the year. And it's fast and it's full and whatever. And I mean, taking a break means going to the bathroom, that kind of a thing. A lot of the day, or the moments of driving to the house or whatever, So is when I get those moments, is it going to him? Or is it on what the Rangers score was, or, did the Cowboys beat the Jaguars in this preseason game, or is it? Now, is there anything wrong with me checking the Rangers score or whether the Cowboys? No, we're talking about the heart. We're talking about the heart. And what is it that I'm filling, or attempting to fill my life with? Am I rushing through the work week to get to Friday at 5 so I can do whatever, watch TV or go to the restaurant or be off? Is leisure, has that become my prize, my treasure? C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity. He said, a man who makes his golf or his motor bicycle, a little bit later, earlier era, his motor bicycle the center of his life, or a woman who devotes all of her time to clothes or bridge or her dog, is being just as intemperate. There's the dog on cue. There you go. It's Jana's dog. Nice. You can't make that happen. Intemperate as someone who gets drunk every evening. How about that? Of course, it does not show in the outside as easily. Bridge mania or golf mania do not make you fall down in the middle of the road. But God is not deceived by externals. That's deep. God knows where our heart is. God knows what I'm devoted to. He knows if I want him or if I want something else. Now, this is one of those sermons, where everybody in here, don't be looking around going, yeesh, he's meddling, Well, it's because he's meddling in me. Okay, and all I'm doing is telling you what he's doing in me, and he's letting me know, it's so easy for me to get into this trap of thinking, well, if I can just get some time off, well, if I can just have a break, or if I could just get to whatever, instead of, Lord, help me be present right here with you. Right here. Wherever, whether I'm in the work or I'm not in the work, whether I'm in the rat race or I got to come home and sit on the couch, let me be present with you. And then if he says, hey, go watch a game or whatever, great. But it's in order. It's in order. It's not, I'll give you, 23 seconds in the morning and I'm going to do this other thing. And I can't wait to do this other thing. And it's duty. I just did it because, I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And then maybe you'll bless the rest of this mess that's going on. That's not what it's about. Again, Jesus taught that where our treasure is, there our heart will be also. And I think it's important for us to go, God, show me what my treasure is. And you may be scratching your head and going, well, I don't really know where my treasure is. Well, again, where's your time? Where is your energy? Where's your focus? Where do your thoughts go? That's a pretty good indication of what your treasure is. What is it you're looking forward to? Do I look forward to getting up and spending time with him? I think that getting up part's the part that gets me a lot of times, But if I want to see him, I'll get up. It's amazing how, Christmas morning, bam, here we go. Everybody's up. Madam Jana, first year we got married, it was Christmas, 4 a.m, pow, she was gone. I was like, what in the world just happened? Is the house on fire or something? But they got up early because their dad did shift work and they had to get up and they were at it, man. And, I was scrambling and stumbling around and whatever. But there was an excitement that it was on. It's amazing how when there's something that we're ready for, we get up. We get up. So let's go back to 2:42 and let's see what the church, what were they devoted to? They were intentionally choosing to spend a great deal of time and energy on these things. And so one of the things was they devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings. Now we can sit here and go, yeah, boy, that would have been cool to sit around with Peter and John, Matthew, and hear them teach. Yeah. Well, last time I checked, we can. They wrote it all down. Oh, well, I didn't really mean that. I meant like if you could sit with them, We just try and figure out ways to cover up that we're devoted to something else. Oh, it's there. It's there. Now I got to deal with, do I really want to, am I really devoted to the apostles' teachings? You know, Paul wrote a whole lot of stuff down for us. Matthew, Peter wrote several letters. John wrote his, the gospel. He's got 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. He wrote Revelation. Hang out, spend a little time in the apostles' teachings. Allowing God to teach me, to grow me, to feed me. They were devoted to this. They spent time and energy here. Now, we all, we're not throwing stones here. We all are guilty here. We all are. Lord, help us. Help us to have a hunger for your word. Help us to have a hunger. Help us to recognize the value of what you've given us. Help us every time we make an excuse and go, well, I don't know what God's will is, or I don't know what he's saying, or I don't hear God's voice, or whatever. And we remember, am I devoted to his teachings? Maybe if I spent a little more time in here, I'd have a little better idea what his will is and what he's saying and how to handle this mess that we're going through. He wrote it down for us. The early church was devoted to the apostles' teachings. Okay, it says here, and to fellowship. They spent time together. They made time to connect with other people. In churches today, different scenarios happen, I think, the social dynamics or whatever. We can know people enough to go, hey, and usually the people over there and the people over there, that's about how well we know each other. Oh yeah, I've seen them at church. That's about it. Because we got busy schedules and, we don't have time, we got to run off and all those kind of things. If we want to grow, I don't mean numerically. Those things, that's up to God. I'm talking about grow in the body, where we build each other up. As we spend time with the Lord, and we're spending time in the apostles' teachings, he's going to be working in us of, hey, God's Spirit will be speaking, hey, so-and-so, need to go check on them. Pray for them this week. Donnie came up to me before church, had somebody that God had put on his heart. Hey, so-and-so, I've really got this person on my heart. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Where we're being led to be connected. And fellowship, there's all different levels. You can go eat donuts with somebody, go sit down and have a cup of coffee or go watch a game together. That's all fellowship. But I think sometimes we go, yeah, but we're going to keep it in that level. I'm not going to tell them about where my life fell apart. I don't want to get that out there. They might not like me anymore. I'll just give you a quick clue. Everybody else's has too. There's not a person in here that hadn't gone through a mess. I'm just telling you, all of us. And at times we've done better than others. That's humanity. Without him, it's just the mess we've made of things. But thanks be to God. He doesn't leave us there. He doesn't go, oh, yeah, well, y'all made your mess. Sit in it. He doesn't do that. He builds us up. He encourages us. He tells us there's more. He gives us hope. He surrounds people around us where when we're struggling, they can go, hey, I've been right where you were. And man, it was awful, and I felt alone, and God built me up and encouraged me. And so I'm just here to do that. I'm here to encourage you. I just grabbed a few pictures that I had of people in this church where you just connect. You just connect in him. Ron South and I, we are about as different in our interests as you can get. Okay? And I use Ron all the time in this example because he lets me. He doesn't care. Ron rodeo dude. He is a farmer. He is, loves animals. He's got animals all over the place, back when he had his farm, all that kind of stuff. Me, I don't have any animals, Jana has all those. Well, that's Janice. That's it. I got on a horse one time, and they're like, well, just, do this. And I did that, and the horse kept going that way. And I was like, I don't like this. And I got off, and I hadn't been on one since, I like sports and all those things. And none of that matters here. None of that matters. I'm using that example, but we all have so many differences and likes and appreciations and all that, and none of that matters in Him. In fact, we enjoy our differences. We enjoy that. We can tease about it and laugh about it and whatever. And He teaches me the value of things in His world. And I don't know if I got some in mind. I hope so. But that's called, that's, people talk about diversity. That's diversity. God made us that way. At its finest. The Creator with a capital C who said, yeah, I'm not going to make your fingerprint like hers. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to make them different. He didn't have to do that. He could have gone, I'd have gone, oh, who cares? They all be all the same. That's going to take too much time. Not Him. Everybody's different. He's an artist. And He made you the way you are. And He made me the way I am. And then He goes, okay, now I'm going to put all y'all together. And we're like, ah! We don't handle that very good. But in Him, great things are accomplished. Jesus said they will know that we are His by our love. As we gather together and spend time together and appreciate each other and love each other, people are going to look and go, what's the deal with them? Here's another one. Me and Charles, man, we're way different. He likes the Green Bay Packers. I can't even understand that. I just can't. But I still love him. As he says, we are Siamese triplets. So, that's it. We're tight. And people see that and they look at us and they're like, what's the deal with them? But it's His love. It's His love. That's unique. That's life-changing. And we can't come here to gather or in the world and go, I'm going to build all these little walls and, I don't have to talk to somebody and shake hands with somebody. Yes, some people are more introverted than extroverted. The key there, though, is obedience. For the extrovert, he may be telling you, yeah, close your mouth and listen. For the introvert, he may go, now go on. I told you to go over there. It's obedience to Him. That's powerful. It's powerful. So they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. They devoted themselves to fellowship. They devoted themselves to the breaking of bread. There's something about eating. That's why I like it so much. There's something about it. Yeah. There's something about it. When you want to have a hard conversation with somebody, invite them to go get something to eat, And I don't know. I don't know what it is, but God endowed it with something. He didn't have to keep us running every day and our fuel for our bodies this way. He could have just made it where we didn't have to do that. But He chose to make it where we have to do this regularly, and that coming together and spending time together over a meal or a break or, like we said, coffee or whatever, there's something bonding about that. It brings walls down. And there again, we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional. Now, obviously we can go, oh, I do that with my buddies all the time. And that's awesome. That's why you're probably really close. But then when He goes, what about this person? You're like, no. And He goes, oh, yes. There's those where He calls us to branch out and to dare, to risk failure, to risk that someone might reject me. That's why we do all that. Well, what if they don't like me? When we know we're His, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. People who put others down and verbally abuse and whatever, they don't feel good about themselves. That's not psychology talk. That's just true. Because when you know whose you are, you don't have to do that. In fact, you're set free to spend all your energy building them up and encouraging them. It's an incredible gift. You know, my dad, George Metzel, was amazing at saying the right word of encouragement. He wasn't a big talker. But I grew up thinking I was like 10 foot tall. You know, I'm not kidding. I thought I could do whatever because my dad said I could. Now, I've since learned there's a few things I can't do. But it took me a while to get knocked down a bunch of times because he kept going, well, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. And I'd be like, okay. And then I'd just go do it. There's an incredible power that God has endowed us with when His Spirit is helping us to encourage people. It's powerful. It's powerful. Words have the potential for death. Words also have the potential for life. And the more we're listening to Him, think about what they're doing. They are devoting themselves to His Word. Well, as we devote ourselves to His Word, don't you think we're more in tune to hear when He says to encourage someone, to build them up? When we're being devoted to fellowship and He's saying, hey, spend some time with this person or this group, and we're going, well, I don't want to. I'm this or I'm that or whatever. And He goes, no. You need to. That He's positioning us to build up, to encourage, to listen. You know, I shared a few weeks ago about the book that I read that is just a phenomenal book. It's called The Insanity of God. I know it's a crazy title. You have to read it. And once you read it, you won't worry about the title. The guy just struggled. Okay, he went overseas as a missionary. Everything was just extremely hard. He couldn't figure it out. And then God ministered to him. So there's hope in the book. I'll just tell you that ahead of time. But one of the things that when he talked about being in Somalia, and he was in the area where where's the Black Hawk down? My mind. Mogadishu, thank you, Mogadishu. And he's talking about the thousands that were dying of starvation daily. And I think I may have shared a few weeks ago, and he said one of the things that just blew him away was even more than getting food in these lines of people trying to just get something to make it another day, they wanted them to listen to their story. Even more than their food. They needed that interaction. We're made that way. We are made to interact with other people. And he said I'd listened to the story, there wasn't anything I could do to fix it. And yet they went away with more peace than when they came. Because someone listened. Someone listened. That chapter right there, it really got me because, you know, like I said, my day's nuts, it's crazy, it's whatever, you know, and all day long people are going, hey, you got a second? And I want to go, no, I don't have a second, you know? And yet, I think of that, I'm like, it's all about people. Yeah, what you got? What you got? That's all that was necessary. I don't necessarily have the answer for what they're saying, but I can listen. I can let them know that it matters, that they matter. God is teaching us how to interact with people. But it has to be intentional. We have to be devoted to Him first. If I'm devoted to listening to other people, I'm going to fail miserably. And after by lunch, I'll just be yelling at them. Get out of my office, you know. that kind of thing. I don't have what it takes. I don't. But as we devote ourselves to Him, He fills us with what is necessary. The breaking of bread and to prayer. You know, here was an example, you know, a time where we got together and we're just spending time. And, you know, look at the faces. There's joy there. That's not canned. You know, that wasn't made that way. There's an authenticity there where people are enjoying each other. That's a gift of God. That's a blessing that He provides. Now, does that mean that anytime you get together it's going to be like that? No. I think we all have experiences where it wasn't, and that's why we go, yeah, that's why we don't get together. We got to take His light and allow Him to do His work. So to the prayer, the breaking of bread and the prayer, they were spending time. Lord, what is it you want from us? What is it you're saying? They're praying for each other. They're carrying each other's burdens. You know, I see David as he comes in and his body is tired. It's tired. He's going through the treatments that he's going through. His body is tired. And that affects me. And it's important for us to pray for him and to pray for Kim and for the family in these times. And for each of you and all the different things that you got going. But if I hadn't spent any time getting to know you and caring about you and listening to him and all those things, then I'm not in a very good position to do anything. I end up just griping to God. God, why do you let people get sick? You know, that's missing the point. We live in a fallen world. There you go. I know this. We can do all things through him who strengthens us. Whatever that road is. And I don't say that flippantly. I think each of us has been through some tough roads where we weren't sure we were going to make it. But he is enough. He is enough. And that we hold on to. And that we come together in prayer. And we lock arms. And it's different. Life is different then. It's amazing how when we are willing to go and not just talk at God, but speak to him, and maybe you ask him a question, maybe you don't hear right now. Keep going back. It's not him, I promise. It's us in our, we get muddled and we get distracted and we got stuff in us, and maybe I'm not ready to hear what he's ready to tell me or whatever the case may be. He will share with you. He will meet you where you are. I know that because in Jeremiah 29:13 he says, if you seek me, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. I didn't make that up. He wrote it. He said it. You'll find him. You'll find him. Just keep seeking him. I'm like, God, I don't know what else. Your word says to seek you with all my heart. I think I am. I guess I'm not. Teach me what that means. And he does. He does. Spending time in prayer. This is the group last year at a FCA meeting. There's something about people coming together in prayer. There's something about it. He says where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am also. Well, there you go. And then, at the end of our service, we have time where we get together in small groups to pray. It's a time of fellowship. It's a time to share. It's a time to have joy, to laugh, and to, all of that is to have life and to go past all our little walls and barriers where we're willing to be vulnerable. So we're coming closer to the finish. We're going to move into 43. And it says, everyone was filled at awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. God is moving in amazing ways here in Acts chapter 2. People are being healed and signs are being performed and so forth. And a lot of times people struggle with, well, how come, why did they do that then? He doesn't do that now and whatever. And I'll just tell you, God does do those things now. He doesn't do them at my command. Okay? And I think that's important for us to recognize. Some people think, well, I prayed for this person to be healed and they weren't healed, so God doesn't heal now. Well, that's a pretty poor conclusion. How about I just recognize that God's sovereign and I'm not? He's in charge. He knows way more than I do. He sees a picture that I can't even fathom. Not even close. Obviously, all of us want all people to be healed and not have any problems and so forth, and that's the way God intended it before we decided we'll just do it our way and sin entered the world. There are times that God says, I will heal this in this way and I'll heal this in another way. Sometimes he heals spiritually and allows someone to stay physically where they are. He's God. He's in charge. But we see signs and wonders here because he's confirming that these apostles are his. Take a look. Let's go all the way back. I always like to look how he did things in the Old Testament and then see how he did the same thing in the New Testament, because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Okay? So back in Joshua is taken over from Moses. They're going into the promised land. I'm sure he's scared to death because God keeps telling him, hey, be strong and courageous, which means he's probably scared to death and ready to bail. Okay? So he tells him over and over and over and over, be strong and courageous. And in chapter 3, he tells Joshua, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to part the Jordan River. Now, a lot of times we talk about the Red Sea and Moses. Joshua doesn't get his due a lot of times. He took them across the Jordan River on dry ground. Okay? It's still a pretty amazing miracle. So it says, and the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all of Israel so that they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. I'm letting them know that I'm using you as the leader in showing what's going on. Tell the priests who carry the Ark of the Covenant, when you reach the edge of the Jordan waters, go in, stand in the river. They go out there and the water stops, and here go the people, and they were like, well, I'll be dang, I guess Joshua is the guy. Well, God does the same thing in his people, whether it was the apostles or God's servants today. He's confirming that he's God. And that as we seek him, he can and will move as he so sees fit. Now, just like he did then, just like he did in the Old Testament. So we go on a little further. He talks in 44 and 45. It says, all the believers, again, we're looking at the early church here. All the believers were together and they had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Now, this is not a command that we have to become communist. Okay? It's not. That everybody has to become, live in a commune. It's not. God's Spirit was moving here, and the people in moving in the Spirit recognize that stuff is just stuff. And then when somebody had a need, they're like, fine, hey, I've got what they need right now. And they started giving and selling and whatever to take care of the needs that were arising. Now, that is quite the challenge. It is. Because we'll go, well, I'll give this or whatever, but, now wait a minute. The rest of that, that's mine. I worked hard for that, which is true. But he owns it all. He does. And he doesn't want us to get these things out of line in the priority standpoint either. And there's times he goes, hey, you need to get rid of this. It needs to go. And we're like, what? Wait a minute. He's done that to me multiple times in my life. And I had to get rid of certain things. I'm not talking about sinful things, just things. And I'm like, no, I could give those things up, God, if you wanted me to. And he's going, I want you to. And I'm like, no. a minute. I mean, aren't we supposed to go through this hypothetically? You remember Isaac and the ram? I need the ram. Right now, I need the other thing. And he goes, no, I asked you to give it up. And then you give it up, and you're like, ugh. I guess that meant a little more to me than it needed to. These people were devoted to him more than they were devoted to the things. Things started getting in order. And it's amazing how people's needs started getting taken care of. We look at our world and we go, gosh, there's so many needs. God, how are you ever going to meet those needs? And he's looking at us. Do you? Do you? And we're like, now, wait a minute. I mean, that's going to ask a little more of me than I'm ready to be devoted to. Where's my treasure? Where is my treasure? What is my treasure? Because my heart's going to be there. We look at some of the things Jesus taught, Matthew 6:19-20. He says, do not store up yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. The hoarding, it's a heart thing. It's a heart thing. It's not about the stuff. It's the heart. And he's going, understand, guys, don't turn inward because there's death there. There's no life in that. He talked in Luke chapter 12, verses 16-21. He tells the parable. He says he tells them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. And he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build new ones, bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. And God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves but is not rich towards God. You see, the point, it's not even giving things away. It's not about the amount of dollars. It's not about that. God that doesn't mean anything to him. It's the individual's heart. And he knows the heart. Somebody might be able to write a big check, but there's something else they wouldn't give up. You know, he knows us. And he wants us devoted to him. And you go, okay, well, is that, what's the big deal about being devoted to him? Because he knows that's what's best for us. That is what's best for us, is being devoted to him. He made us in his image. Remember that thing in us, that place in us that only he can fill. Only he can. So we come to right at the bottom of chapter 2. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They wanted to be together. They wanted to grow. They wanted to find out more about the Lord. They were hungry to grow in their relationship with the Lord. They were hungry for that. And then we finish the chapter. It says, and they broke bread in their homes, and they ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Man, I mean, you read that and you're like, gosh, why can't it be like that? Why can't it just be like that? It can be like that. It can be like that. It may look different. It may happen in have a different flavor to it or whatever, because God's very original. And he's always doing things the way he sees fit. Remember the fingerprint thing? He does it new all the time. But there's something else I want to say before we close with chapter 2. I think sometimes we read this and with all the right thinking, noble thinking, we think, gosh, yes, that's the epitome and that's what it ought to look like. And we think that at the end of chapter 2, the end of the movie, it came to the end and the credits rolled, and it says, and they lived happily ever after. Well, that's not what it says in Acts, is it? In fact, just a few chapters over, if you look in chapter 8, it says, on that day, a great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria, and godly men buried Stephen after he had been stoned to death and mourned deeply for him. And Saul began to destroy the church, going from house to house, and he dragged off both men and women and put them in prison. How about that for a closing statement? The point is, this isn't utopia. Okay? Sometimes we think that church is just going to be lovely and roses and we'll all just feel great. And, there are seasons where God touches and he blesses and he grows us maybe numerically. He touches and he brings in salvation. That said thousands were added daily. But then there's also tough times. And my point is that doesn't put away the good time. That doesn't say that wasn't real. No, it was real. It's just a new season. And he's growing people. And he's building them up. And he's teaching them that there's more to know and to learn and to grow. And if these people had stayed all in Jerusalem, Christianity wouldn't have spread all across the world. And God allowed difficulty to happen to move them out. To go meet other people. And to spread the gospel. So there's so much to it. So much to it. For us today, the point is, what is it we're devoted to? Who is it we're devoted to? Because really, it comes down to two. I'm either devoted to him or I'm devoted to me. Okay, now my me may be in whatever it is that I'm being distracted in and not allowing God's kingship to be in charge of that area of my life. It's either me or it's him. And as we go through that, we have to allow his Spirit to convict us and to draw us to him. And say, Lord, these areas of my life, I am asking you to help me devote them to you. Show me what that means. Show me what that looks like. Let's close in prayer today. Father, I thank you for your word. I thank you for the way you gave us an example in the early church and how they were devoted to the apostles' teaching, Lord, to fellowshipping, to breaking of bread, and to prayer. Father, you've given us an example of what it's to look like. And I pray that you, by your Spirit, convict us so that we might look more like your Son, Jesus. That we might become the bride of Christ that you are preparing to come back to. Thank you, Lord, for the way you are so personal. I thank you for the way you work in myself and how honest and real you are with me, that areas that have got to change, you let me know. You do that with each of us, Lord. Give us a heart to respond, to allow you to go to work, and to make us more like you. Thank you for this day. In Jesus' name.